The Kaliningrad region is truly a unique part of Russia. The country's westernmost point, it shares no borders with the rest of the mainland and is surrounded by the Baltic Sea, Poland and Lithuania. Annexed at the end of World War II, the region used to be part of East Prussia. It was famed as a centre of culture and commerce, the home of philosopher Immanuel Kant and the world's largest producer of raw amber. There have been many changes in the past few decades, but the original German history and flavour is still very present. The centre of the capital, Kaliningrad, is a mix of waterways, parks and broad avenues that incorporates both modern and medieval architecture. First impressions? That this is a city that's doing very well for itself, and I was eager to find out more.
So, I know that Kaliningrad is famous for its amber deposits and its amber souvenirs, but it turns out they might know one or two things about the amber nectar here as well. Starts well. Oh God, mimes. Hog in the limelight. What? And lots of love to begin everything. Wow.
I was about to take a seat at one of Russia's premier cocktail competitions, with some of the finest barmen in the country battling it out behind the bottles.
Well, so far, I've seen a French Rose, a Cheerio, and a Dr. Faustus, the cocktail that steals your soul. Potent, I'd expect.
I was there to meet Mark, the event's compere and all-round Kaliningrad expert, and a man who knows his mixology.
According to Russian tradition, we need to have a drink first to get to know each other better.
Yes,
I agree.
Look at this.
Seeing as Kaliningrad is the capital of the Amber Kingdom, amber is at the heart of all things here in one way or another. This cocktail here is called living amber.
So live or living amber. I like it.
Would you like a taste?
I'd like to very much.
I think amber juice. Both sound good to me, as I've been waiting a long time for a cocktail.
Here we are.
Spasibo. Большое. Let's try this.
What do you think?
Очень хорошо.
It's very nice, very tasty.
My amber cocktail in the Amber City. You've got to love a man whose first action is to give you a drink, haven't you? Cheers.
There's more where that came from.
With the party still in full swing, I arranged to meet Mark for a proper introduction to the city, starting with the memorial to its most famous son.
Any tour of the city without mentioning Immanuel Kant would be incomplete. Not only does he symbolize the city of Königsberg, but he also represents the philosophy of modern civilization. This memorial, the so-called Kant's grave, was refashioned in 1924. You see those patterns up on the ceiling? They serve as a reminder of ancient Egypt and the pharaohs. Considering that the pharaohs were thought to have contact with God, the architect of this memorial wanted to say that Kant's philosophy had a divine nature.
And they're in a divine place at the foot of Kaliningrad's magnificent 13th century cathedral.
Now, here we are at the cathedral's walls. See the medieval brickwork? It's uneven and looks a bit shaky.
Yeah.
Echoes of the city's German past combine with modern architecture throughout the city, and no more so than down one particular lane.
This is 1812 Street, and it's really quite unique. This is where two cities meet, Kaliningrad and Königsberg. These houses represent the original Kaliningrad. They are the so-called Khrushchevki. They were built in accordance with a special design approved by Nikita Khrushchev. But do you know where he stole the idea from? Great Britain. And on this side of the street is Königsberg. That part of the house dates from the 19th century and this is from the 20th. The two differ in style. That one represents pseudo-Gothic, while this one is Bauhaus, straight rectangular lines. What is special here are these railings. They were made on this very spot in Kaliningrad. Blacksmiths have told me these things are protected, and in turn they actually protect the whole district, because otherwise the place would be demolished. And this is a fire station. It looks just as it did when it was built in the 19th century. Surprisingly, it has not been taken to pieces. Even the original door has been preserved. Now back then, horses used to stand here. The wooden oak floor inside stopped the horses from getting cold or falling over when it got slippery in the winter. Even it withstood all their hoods. This is a combination of architectural beauty and functionality. It is still used as a fire station, in fact.
As Mark headed off, he recommended I visit the city's docks and check out one of Kaliningrad's most interesting tourist destinations.
Now, I've been lucky enough to visit some great museums in Russia, but I have to say, I think that Kaliningrad has one of the finest in the whole country. It's called the Museum of the World Ocean, and it's a real treasure trove.
If it sailed above or lived below the waves, this museum has it covered, including an aquarium filled with brightly coloured fish, embryonic sharks, and the odd evolutionary marvel.
There's some real missing links here. I can just imagine one of these guys first crawling out of the swamp millions of years ago. They're mud skippers, and they're amphibious and perfectly happy swimming around, or just popping out onto a tree branch for a breath of air.
And when it comes to marine life, there's the great alongside the small.
Kaliningrad used to be the base for Russia's whaling fleet, and this unfortunate fellow was one of its last victims. They brought him back from the South Atlantic in 1975, and he's one of the largest complete sperm whale skeletons in the world. Look at those teeth.
The jewel in the museum's crown has to be the research ship Vityaz. Over 40 years, it covered 800,000 miles and visited 100 different ports, seeking out new species and information about the ocean depths. It may have made its last voyage back in 1979, but its ham radio is still more than capable of reaching out across the waves.
CQ England West. CQ England West.
Can I have a go?
Microphone.
Right.
Sit down, please.
This is Radio 2 Mike Whiskey Oscar from the research ship Vityaz in Kaliningrad. Anyone reading me?
Our controller was trying to get me in touch with the UK, and it wasn't long before we picked up some English words over the airwaves.
Found Northern Ireland. It's 4:48. I think we're discussing oil rigs. Fantastic. Small world, eh? Very small world.
As our controller returned to the dials, I headed down to the bowels of the ship. The Vityaz once measured the depth of the Mariana Trench, so it's hardly surprising that its underwater exhibition is its highlight.
This is a tour of the seabed, which details how scientists probe into the depths of the world's oceans. Here you can see special underwater video cameras and how the design of the diving suit has changed over the years. Try these boots on for size.
Right. Okay, so delve into the past here of underwater exploration. Oh. Try these babies. Well, it certainly keep you anchored and complete the look. Hang on. Right. Oh, very comfy. It is in here. I think I like the modern diving equipment a little bit better.
Some of the exhibits tell the story of the Titanic and how the film was made. James Cameron presided over the museum's opening ceremony and gave us two valuable exhibits, the ship's bell and a cup. The film features both of them.
Back in 1996, Cameron journeyed to the wreck aboard the Keldysh, another Kaliningrad-based ship. But the Vitiers has a proud history of discovery in its own right.
Right, I'm going to try and get in this, because apparently submersibles like these used to be launched from the ship, and they used to search for new underwater life, and 1,200 different species were discovered during the Chaz's time out on the ocean and beneath it.
It's difficult not to get a taste for adventure down here, and I was keen to try out some underwater exploration for myself. Sadly, a trip down to Titanic wasn't in the budget, but I did know where I could find a different wreck here in the Kaliningrad region. I just needed the right equipment.
So, almost ready. I've been on one or two dives in Russia, but this one is supposed to be a bit special, because it used to be an old amber quarry, but since then they've used it to train actors, military divers, and even a few journalists like me. So, fingers crossed, there's going to be one or two interesting things to see down there.
And down on the bottom, I wasn't disappointed. There's a sunken plane complete with Nazi insignia. And it makes a pretty intimidating obstacle course. And I was even able to bring away a souvenir as well.
Now that is a great dive site. If only the clarity was a little bit better underwater. But I did notice one thing in particular. Look at that. Do you think James Cameron dropped it off the last time he was here?
Back on dry land, it was time to take in some more of the local region and visit a poignant reminder of how modern Kaliningrad was founded.
The Kaliningrad region came into existence at the end of the Second World War when it was annexed by the Soviet Union, and it was the scene of some fierce fighting from 1944 to 45. And here in the little village of Ruskoye, it's one of the few places in Russia where you can find a Soviet memorial next to a German war cemetery.
Several hundred German soldiers have been reburied here from all around the region, with many taken from one of its fiercest confrontations.
The fight for Fort Number 5 was one of the keys of the Battle of Königsberg. It lasted from the 6th to the 8th of April 1945, and the building's battered remains are just over the water here.
The fort was one of 12 constructed around the city, and it's still one of the best preserved, despite suffering heavy punishment.
The Soviets launched a massive artillery bombardment, turning great sections of the fort into pieces of rubble like this. But it was that gave the cover for their sappers to get close enough to the walls to prime their explosives and cause the breach, which led to the final decisive assault.
I'd had a taste of Kaliningrad's modern history, but I wanted to find out more about its origins, back to the founding of Königsberg itself. Remnants of Kaliningrad's distant past can be found throughout the region, including castle ruins just ripe for exploring.
One thing about all these old forts is that they've got some fantastic hiding places. So I'm just going to nip in here and see what I can find. If there is anything hidden in this place, I reckon it's got to be down here. It's really chilly. I wonder what they used to keep. Beer, food, the odd unfortunate prisoner.
It was cold, dark, and dank, and as I looked around, it was easy to imagine that, at least down here, nothing had changed for hundreds of years.
My lords, ladies, and gentlemen, welcome to the 14th century. This is Georgenberg Castle, the mightiest fortress in the land and home of the Teutonic Knights, masters of East Prussia.
By the early 1300s, the Teutonic Knights had conquered all of East Prussia and converted the old Prussian inhabitants to Christianity. They built castles around the area, including the original Konigsberg Castle and Georgenberg. But they were constantly defending their lands against attacks by the neighboring Lithuanians. And every good knight needs a trusty steed.
These are some of the descendants of the knight's old horses. Hello. Hello. Hello, baby. Oh, it's very friendly.
There have been stables on this territory for more than 6 centuries, and generations of military and racing horses have been bred here. The most popular horse is the Trakehner, an old Prussian breed that's been crossed with thoroughbreds over the years to produce an animal highly valued for its strength and speed. And they're a curious lot, too.
And there we go. Nice. That's it. Just a snack for you today, I'm afraid. To wait for the kids to come in, give you some more. I love the fact that they're so friendly. Even the babies will come close to you. That's it, Mum, I'm afraid.
The foals here are only a couple of months old and will stay with their mothers until they're strong enough to graze on their own. You can tell that they're a big and hardy group of horses here, but quite frankly, they're a little spoilt, because everybody also gets their very own wash and tanning session. And once I'd taken a little instruction from Nina, it was time to give King Live here a good scrub.
Glamorous life I lead, eh? Oh, yes. There's a dirty, dirty boy. Dirty boy. Get you nice and clean. Go out and impress all the mares, won't you? Nod your head if you like it. Yeah, that's right. We like it very much.
But it's not a task without obstacles.
This is the problem. When you've got a 400-kilogram horse and it decides to stand on your hose, it makes bath time a little bit difficult.
And it seems the wash and rub down is only the half of it.
And I don't know about you, but I've never seen anything like this before in my life. Because once the king here has been nicely cleaned, he gets a session in the tanning booth. What do we want? A nice shade of orange we're gonna go? So he gets 20 minutes, which should certainly make him ready for the beach, I would think. He's already got the muscles. I'm just gonna get the Miami tan, eh?
It may seem a little excessive, but when you consider that the horses here can sell for up to 60,000 euros, a little pampering is a sound investment. Of course, they also need to be fit and strong, so I headed out with Nina for the most important part of their day, exercise time.
So I get to just sit back now and watch them go. A couple of very worthy heirs to their warrior ancestors.
With my stable boy duties done, I was free to head back into Kaliningrad. For a time, during the Second World War, the city was home to the legendary Amber Room, which disappeared without trace at the end of the fighting. It's never been found, but a local museum has made their own small tribute. It contains pieces from all over the world, supposedly gathered by a local naturalist.
All these items were brought from Scandinavia because amber is found there. This one was found on the island of Haiti. Incidentally, it was in Haiti that Columbus saw amber for the first time in his life. One variety of amber is blue in color because there's cobalt in it.
In fact, it seems wherever the naturalist went, he found more and more treasures.
You can also find amber in Australia. This boomerang is from there. The amber arrows come from Africa. The castanets are from Spain. This is a collection of seashells. It was put together by our naturalist while he was on his voyages. So amber can also be found in the ocean.
A tall tale, perhaps, but it does get you thinking.
Well, if he had been real, our naturalist would have had a pretty amazing life. Imagine that. Sailing the seas, searching for all those different types of amber. I wonder what that would have been like. Well, would you believe it? One thing about Kaliningrad is it's got more inland waterways than any other country in Europe. And I have joined the crew here on the Fira for a little voyage of discovery.
Kaliningrad lies on the mouth of the Prigolya River and has channels that pass through the heart of the city. Because of the warm waters, the yachting season here is the longest in the country, lasting up to 7 months. Captain Alexander says it's now a far more inclusive sport.
Nowadays, a medium-class yacht costs about as much as a decent foreign-made car. When the word yacht crops up, for some reason or other, Roman Abramovich with his 50-meter yacht and scantily clad girls spring to mind. But it's a myth that only oligarchs can buy a yacht. Today's middle class can easily afford one.
But if you want to sail through the center of the city, you need a little preparation.
Give it some slack, James. A little more.
We're just coming up to the old German bridge here, where the cars drive along the bottom level and trains go along the top. But because it's so low, we've had to take down all the masts, so fingers crossed. Oh! Yeah, fortunately we're not bumping our heads.
Kaliningrad is still a busy port, and the harbours are full of tankers and scientific vessels.
Over there you can see Kaliningrad's most famous ship, the Keldysh. It's home to the Mir submersibles, and it's the ship that James Cameron took out to use for his explorations down to the wreck of Titanic.
We couldn't have asked for better conditions, and I was more than happy to relax and enjoy the ride.
It's a tough job. Someone's got to do it.
But you should never speak too soon, because our flattened mast needed to go right back up.
Not an easy exercise, this one. Past the horizontal, I think she'll be okay. There she's up.
I'd explored the centre and the wide open waterways, and now, like our fabled museum naturalist, it was time for me to go hunting.
So we finally pulled into the harbour, and Captain Alexander tells me that one of the biggest amber deposits in the region should be right over there.
And after a short trek, a glimpse at a local sign told me I'd come to the right place.
The Kaliningrad region is home to the largest amber deposits on the planet. In fact, it's so important around here, they named a town after it.
The word yantar in Russian means amber, and here in Yantarny, the precious resin is literally just below the surface.
So this is where it all comes from, the largest open-cast amber pit in the world. They've been mining here industrially for over a century and a half, and they're still pulling out hundreds of tons every year. Sounds like a good place to do a little prospecting, doesn't it?
I headed down towards the quarry and onto the sandbanks. It's said that amber washes up along the beach here all the time, so I hoped I wouldn't have to do too much digging.
Just a second. Yes. Well, they weren't kidding, were they? The soil really is full of it. A proper little amber treasure chest, just lurking in the sand.
But finding the raw materials is just the start. Yantarny also has a thriving jewellery and souvenir business, and everything is crafted by hand.
And after a lot of hard work, this is where all the pieces of amber finally end up. So if you like, you can take home something rather modest. Or if you do happen to be a passing oligarch with 10,000 euros or so in your pocket, there's one or two pieces that are a bit more grand. Well, I can dream, can't I?
I'd found my amber mementos and had a chance to experience hundreds of years of history that have shaped the Kaliningrad region. But before my time here came to an end, I had a chance to reach the end of Russia itself.
This is quite a special moment for me. My very first discovering Russia started in Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky, the easternmost city of Russia. And now I'm in Baltisk, looking into the Baltic Sea in the westernmost point of the whole country. And it's been a pretty incredible journey in between.